Ho ho ho, and what is up, YouTube? Giving you a quick build update here for our Herald of Agony Juggernaut and the progress that we are making in the ongoing Endless Delve event. My initial thoughts from the Endless Delve event are simply that it's a wonderful alternative experience to leveling through the 10x story campaign. That is not a knock on the 10x story campaign. I personally enjoy leveling multiple characters each and every league, so I'm used to leveling through the 10x story campaign. This is a nice change of pace. It is an interesting challenge with all of the different restrictions and the items that we can and cannot use, the items that we do and do not have access to. To me, this has been an incredibly fun event through the first 24 to 48 hours or so that we've been playing. With initial thoughts about exactly the event itself out of the way, let's jump into this particular build. We started off by getting our first ascendancy point that we could get by grabbing Unstoppable. This was partially so that way we could move quicker and progress to each and every node faster throughout our delve encounters. Also, I was noticing that I was getting stunned quite a bit, so simply having the ability to not be stunned is, of course, something that is quite valuable, especially for a build like Herald of Agony, where I am using Cyclone to proc my various virulence stacks, so that way my Herald of Agony crawler is always active. In Delve, there's almost always monsters around, so you can pretty much always be hitting things, which is really nice. And so really the only time that you're at risk in that scenario is either to one-shots because you're just in a depth that is way stronger than your available life pool, or in a scenario where you get chain stunned and then you simply die because you've been chain stunned. Speaking of dying, I've only had 2 deaths. That's the total number of deaths that we've had on this character all the way down to level 72. One of them was because I was playing on my wife's laptop. I couldn't see anything. I went to go help the baby, and that was really dumb because then I died due to the darkness. And another time I did get killed. I think it was due to just a whole bunch of explosions that went off at the end of an encounter. And so I've tried to come up with some solutions to that. But only 2 deaths. Level 72 is where we've gone so far with the number of deaths. So we started out grabbing Unstoppable, then we came over at our second ascendancy, which is level 55. We grabbed Unflinching, and then at level 68 we got Unrelenting. That was our third one. So now we've got just tons of chaos resistance from our endurance charges and tons of reduced damage taken due to our endurance charges and tons of endurance charges, which, speaking of endurance charges, let me get my character and items out of the way here. The passive tree looks like so. We came up, grabbed Spiritual Command. This is very, very helpful for us, if for no other reason than it gives us a whole bunch of additional attack speed as we are spinning around and progressing throughout the delve, because all of our bonuses to minion attack speed also affect us, and so that's quite nice to have Cyclone spinning as quickly as possible. Came up and grabbed Purity of Flesh. It's a really strong wheel defensively. Came over, grabbed Righteous Army along with Redemption for our minion damage. Came up and grabbed Discipline and Training, so that way we could have, again, as much life as possible. And this is really what this tree boils down to. Grab as much life as possible, grab any minion nodes that you can, and then you can choose to either go with like shield defenses, fortify effect, and a couple other quality of life things, but it's mostly up to you. So devotion as long with endurance, so that way we can grab as many endurance charges. I believe we've got 3 endurance charges on the tree so far. We've got the one up here in the Templar tree. We've got the one over here in the Marauder tree, and then we came down and we grabbed the third one off of the Duelist tree. So those 3 endurance charges combining with our 1 additional endurance charge from our Ascendancy gives us a grand total of 7 endurance charges. If I get really lucky and find some Combs rings, then I might consider going up to 9 endurance charges, but it's pretty great to have that amount of physical damage reduction simply based off of the endurance charges. And Immortal Call is really good with that amount of endurance charges on it. Okay, other things to note on this particular tree is, of course, I'm coming through grabbing Bloodless and Soul of Steel. Soul of Steel is really, really strong. It gives you some flat armor, some increased armor. That's not really where most of the strength is. Most of the strength is that it's giving you 1% to all maximum elemental resistances, which is quite strong across the board. And then you'll also notice that you're going to have to fill in 4 various stat requirements for Dex and for Intelligence on this particular build. Like, I've got Proficiency and Hard Knocks, and I think I've got another one up here. Yeah, I've also got Expertise. We don't have Anoints, and we don't have Bench Crafting, which means a whole bunch of items that might have open room on it to normally craft on don't really have the ability to be crafted on. So if you're short stats on something, you won't necessarily be able to use your gems or level them properly or even use some items. So I'm going out of my way to grab just some extra stats so that way I can equip all the various things that I need to do. Resolute Technique is really, really handy, especially early on. If you are leveling, and I'm talking like level 1 through 15, and you're leveling and you're finding that maybe you're missing a lot or you're not hitting a whole lot, depending on what skill it is that you're using. If you're not using a spell, if you're using an attack, simply grabbing Resolute Technique is a great boost of consistency for your damage. No, you won't deal critical strikes, but you're so early on in the game, you're probably not dealing many critical strikes anyway, and you don't have any passive points to dump into crit multi, and you don't have any items really that early in the game to sink into crit multi. So Resolute Technique is a great solution, especially for somebody like me who's not doing any damage anymore. But even early on, while I was primarily doing damage, leveling from level 1 all the way up, I think, until basically level 28, until I got Cyclone, pretty much using Ground Slam. And then once I got Cyclone, then away we went with Herald of Agony Crawler. My plans for when I hit 75 are to grab Unbreakable, which I'll probably do that here later on today while I'm streaming. Unbreakable is really strong. It gives you 2% life regen per second. Flat 5% reduced damage taken. That's really strong. That's across the board. That counts for chaos damage. It counts for elemental damage. It counts for physical damage. It's just a really, really strong defensive node. And then armor received from body armor is doubled. That's really nice. I know armor is a meme of a stat, but in the delve where we're getting tons and tons of hits, it's nice to have as much armor as we possibly can. And then 1.5% of total physical damage prevented from hits in the past 10 seconds is regenerated as life per second. So even more regen, which we absolutely love inside the delve. Getting into our items, you're going to want to use a claw if you're following my exact specific setup. I'm just using any old claw that's got as much life gained as possible on it. Now, if you also can find a claw that's also got improved chance for poisons while you're using it, that's always nice because that helps ramp up your virulence stacks. And so that's what I was using for a time, but eventually I found a claw that just had way better life gained for each enemy hit by attacks, and I was like, all right, let's swap over to that. It also has got increased attack speed, and then it's got some lightning resistance on it. One thing that's nice about playing a Herald of Agony Crawler build is that you really don't have to care about the damage on your weapons. And so if they've got a roll on it that would otherwise be useless in a trade scenario or in a regular league scenario, where you can simply go out and really craft like a really nice weapon. Nowadays, if you roll resistance on something, it really isn't that bad because you'll probably need it at some point throughout your journey throughout the delve. Moving over from our claw, we've got our helm. We were lucky enough to drop a Joffrey's Crest Great Helm. This is really nice. It gives us +1 to level of socketed gems, gives us fire resistance, cold resistance, lightning resistance, and chaos resistance just across the board. Granted, it doesn't give us life, and I'll probably replace this with a minion helm if I'm able to find a minion helm and then start crafting on it. But for right now, this is about as good as it can get. Links inside my helm are Meat Shield support along with Summon Holy Relic, Maim support, and then Feeding Frenzy. So my Holy Relic is essentially proccing Feeding Frenzy, which gives a whole bunch more attack speed and cast speed to my crawler, which also applies to me because of spiritual command, so it makes me go a little bit faster via feeding frenzy. So that's quite nice. The shield that I'm using is still the base starting shield from level 1, the Remnant of Empire's Goathide Buckler. If you are having trouble, and were a ton of people on day 1 having trouble with like the first couple of nodes, we noticed that a whole bunch of people were having trouble with it. If you're having trouble with it, you can create a Marauder, drop a Remnant of Empires into your stash tab, and then go create whatever other character you want to play with, and then equip it into your shield slot. This shield is absolutely ridiculous for early game, and here's the reason why. It gives you 30% chance to block spell damage. Then you've also got a really strong chance to block attack damage, which early on is great. Just mitigating any kind of damage when you don't have much regen and don't have much mitigation is very, very strong. And then on top of that, you get +3 to all elemental resistances per endurance charge. Now, mind you, endurance charges already give you elemental resistances across the board, all elemental resistances. So this makes each of your endurance charge even more effective and efficient at helping you cap out your resistances. Then the most important line, in my opinion, on the entire thing, 50% chance to gain an endurance charge when you block. Now, this is absolutely insane early on. Leveling from like level 1 all the way up through 28, I found that I often was rocking my maximum amount of endurance charges just because of this. Again, we're not going for like some max block build. We're not using anything to where we can really pump up our efficiency on our blocks or something like that. We're not worried about that. This is simply giving us essentially a timer where if every 5 to 7 seconds or so we are blocking something, then we've got a 50% chance for that block to give us an endurance charge. So if you're blocking something, let's say in a delve environment where there's tons and tons of monsters constantly attacking you, constantly trying to hit you, let's say you block something once every 3 seconds. This means that every 6 seconds, on average, you should be gaining an endurance charge. If the duration of your endurance charge is 7 seconds, this means that you're always going to be stacking up your endurance charges because they're not going to dissipate by the time the next one starts, which refreshes the timer. So now you're rocking max endurance charges while you're pushing your crawler and while you're experiencing whatever event it is that you are currently trying to conquer as you continue to push your character. This shield, absolutely bonkers, and I'm still using it even at level 72. It's just been fantastic. On top of all of this, because I'm a Juggernaut, and because we've got unflinching, 30% chance to gain an endurance charge when you are hit, and then 25% chance that if you would gain endurance charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of endurance charges. That is ridiculously strong. So in other words, if we get hit, we are getting an endurance charge. If we block something, we've got a 50% chance that we're getting an endurance charge. And then every time we're either getting hit or blocking something, there is a small chance, a 25% chance, that we're just going to gain all 7 of our endurance charges. That's really flippin' good. The replacement for this shield is going to have to just be out of this world in terms of the armor that it's going to provide and the maximum life that it's going to provide, because this shield is legitimately just amazing for this particular event. Okay, enough about the shield. Onto the boots. We're using some really, really crappy boots just because they happen to be a 4-link and they happen to have the proper colors that we're looking for. I used an essence on this particular one. It gives me some dexterity. It was an essence that gave dexterity to any other item, and so we needed some dex because this is a very dex-heavy build, and so we threw a dex essence at it. It's got increased move speed and some lightning resist and a little bit of life, but really nothing to write home about. This is where our Herald of Agony is socketed into. It's on a 4-link, so we've got Herald of Agony along with Vicious Projectiles, along with Minion Damage support, and with Pierce support. By the way, in our shield, we've got Dash linked with Second Wind, linked with Convocation. That's what we're using in that shield right now. And again, those early items that we get, because they've got white sockets, the value on that is just... It's amazing when you don't have chromatics and you're going, oh, how do I juggle things around? Like, how do I actually make this work, level 1 through whatever? Like, having uniques that you know can be dependable and reliable and have sockets that you can socket any combination of skills into is really, really helpful. That's another great quality of life thing about this event. Moving on to our rings, we've got the Behemoth Twirl 2-stone ring. This gives me a little bit of fire and cold resistance, but then it also gives me some stats. Remember how we said how difficult it is to actually fill out your stats? Right now, this ring is giving me strength, dex, and intelligence. If I take this ring off, I can't use almost anything that I'm using. So it's pretty essential. Our second ring is the Brood Grasp 2-stone ring. It gives us fire and lightning resistance, along with some dexterity, with some evasion, some flat energy shield. Who cares about that? But it also gives us 78 maximum life and 26 to chaos resistance. That's a pretty honkin' good ring. Presently, we're also using a turquoise amulet that gives us both dex and intelligence. This is actually the lowest roll, or the second to lowest roll possible on the implicit, so hopefully I'm going to find some blessed orbs eventually. But the only reason why I'm using this is because it's giving me dex and intelligence, and then it's got a decent life roll on it as well. Moving on over to our chest piece. This chest piece really isn't much to write home about in terms of its item base type. It's only giving me 500 armor, but take a look at these sexy rolls. I couldn't help but share this on Discord. I almost posted on YouTube, like, get jealous, people, because this is amazing. This is the best wisdom scroll that I've used thus far this entire event. 78 life, 27 fire, 25 cold, 24 lightning. So that's triple resistances plus life on a chest piece that's got 5 sockets, and I was able to 4-link it. Hopefully I'll be able to 5-link it, or maybe I'll just find a 5-link or a 6-link later on today while I'm streaming. My belt is okay. There's several stat lines that I don't really care for. The increased global physical damage doesn't matter. Reduced enemy stun really doesn't matter. But it gives me some life, it gives me some max mana, and it gives me fire and cold resistance. So, I'll use this belt until I can find another one that gives me more stats. In the glove slot, we've got the Armageddon Fist Ancient Gauntlets. These are simply life and dex-based gauntlets. The fact that it's got chaos resistance on there is just an additional perk. It's a 4-link. This is what I'm using my Cyclone on. Cyclone is linked with life gain on hit. That's quite a lot of life gain on hit for each enemy. This combines with our claws. So we get 38 from our life gain on hit, and then we get another 44 from our claw. So that's quite a considerable amount of life gain that we are getting for each enemy that we are hitting with our Cyclone. And Cyclone is an AoE ability, so we're hitting a lot of enemies all at the same time. It's a ton of sustain. We're also got Fortify support linked with Cyclone. That way we basically have permanent Fortify. And then we've got Poison support to make sure that our Virulence stacks are going to max out as much as possible. Other gems are Clarity for mana regen, along with Summon Chaos Golem. My Chaos Golem keeps dying, but ideally I'd like to have him out just so that way I've got some additional physical damage reduction, but he keeps dying. Eventually I'm probably going to have to link him with maybe some minion life or something like that, so that way he's a bit more tanky, maybe with elemental army support, something like that. But he goes down way too quickly right now. And that just might be a theme throughout this particular event. Another great utility gem that I'm using is Vitality. I didn't remember this right away, and then I think it was like level 5 through 10 or something like that. I did remember to use Vitality. It is a magnifico, wonderful gem to be using as you are leveling. If you are having any kind of problems with any of the various encounters that you are on as you are pursuing the endless depths of the delve, using Vitality and Clarity and Precision, because they're all flat mana reservations now and they're not percentages, I highly recommend. If you need more damage, grab Precision. If you need more HP regen, grab Vitality. If you are having any kind of mana problems, use Clarity. It is a great option for you. Then on a 4-link, I've got my Cast When Damage Taken linked with increased duration support, along with Immortal Call and Flesh Offering. Well, thanks for joining for our Day 1 recap and overview of this particular Herald of Agony Crawler Juggernaut that we are playing in the Endless Delve event. I'd love to hear down below in the comments what build you're playing in the Endless Delve event, along with any feedback that you've got so far from your experiences in the Endless Delve event. I'm going to be enjoying it all weekend and then all throughout the next week. This is an incredibly fun event, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I think this is a good alternative to leveling. I don't think this needs to replace the 10x story campaign, but I think this is a great alternative. Let's say maybe if a character in a league has already completed the 10x story campaign, that way we keep racing like somewhat of a consistent skill level and approach and level playing field where everybody's got to go through the 10x story campaign for their first character. But then maybe once you kill Katava, or maybe once you find all your Uber Lab trials, or maybe once you activate the map device, something like that allows you to then progress for future characters in the league to go through an alternative leveling process, because it's been quite fun. It's been smooth. I had an entire session the other day as I was leveling up this particular character where I did not get up from my seat for 3.5 hours. Those of you who watch us over on Twitch know I usually have to get up like once every hour or something, if nothing else, to stretch my legs and get a drink. But I just got absolutely lost in the fun that was Endless Delve. Hopefully you are as well. Drop us a comment down below with the builds that you're rocking and enjoying and any feedback you've got for the Endless Delve. And I hope that you don't drop a Mirror of Calandra today. I hope that you save that for 313 rather than a voided event where you're not going to use it. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and I hope a Mirror of Calandra doesn't drop for you today.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.